Detroit is Different is where you get information, artistry, history, music, and even comedy. Detroit is Different, a home for the culture of Detroit. Visit online at DetroitisDifferent.com today.
Welcome back to the Detroit is Different podcast. And today, have new people to the Detroit is Different family. These are going to be women that add a flair and a perspective. The Spirit Says podcast. We got Bria and Korey in full effect. How are you all doing today?
Hey, I'm good.
Okay. That's good to know. Well is a good space to be in. As we're going to kick everything off with this, and we want to know some of your background before you all come into the world. I want to introduce you all into the world. Detroit is Different style. So welcome to the flagship, and as Josh or Piper may say, the franchise over there. But let's kick this off. Classic Detroit is Different style. Korey, introduce yourself, and then Bria, introduce yourself.
All right, I'm Korey from the Eastside, woo-woo. Graduated from Kettering 04, and I work in education. Currently, I'm in a central office position, but we met working at a high school in the city. I'm not going to say which one. Yeah.
Okay, what now? Okay,
oh, we can say it. We don't work there anymore. Right. It's cool. All right, so we both worked at Mumford High School, and that's where we met. And then that's just kind of how this whole journey got started. I'm a mom. I have 2 kids. Single. I've been married before, and I'm just out here.
All right, Bria.
Hey everybody, I am Bria, like you said. My background, I'm from the East Side also, but okay, I'm not going to get into all that. So I'm from the East Side also. I graduated from DSA in 2011 as a vocal major. I worked at Mumford, obviously, with her, but now I work at an all-girls alternative school / like a mental health facility type school. And I do a lot of things in the community. I do an event every year that's community building at like a Black-owned space every year called Bria's Utopia. And I sing, I write poetry, and we are relaunching Spirit Says.
All right, so that's so much to unpack, and we always start the Detroit is Different interviews with, like, what brought your family here, but we talking East Side. Korey, you gave us, like, kind of a footprint by saying KE, the big K, which right now is being renovated and turned into, like, a technological training center. I'm doing certain things with Alkebu-lan Village, so I'm looking
right
at
there.
What's happening there. So what neighborhood in the East Side?
I'm from Van Dyke. I was over there 48214. Real niggas know me. We were my whole family. My mother and father still live in the house that my grandparents bought when my mom was born. So
Van Dyke.
That's a legacy. Van Dyke. We live right across from Pingree Park, so between Forest, Canfield, Burns, and Iroquois. So right there.
That's right in the heart of also what Paul Taylor will be doing with African Liberation
with
Day and
Inner City Sub Center.
Inner City Sub Center.
Yep.
Okay.
I grew up, Paul, over there, and doing the stuff. That's how we first learned about Kwanzaa. We used to do the little programs, get free lunches in the summertime, all that.
All right, so I definitely have to cut into, like, being a kid in that community, being introduced to, like, so much Afrocentricity. What was that like from a young age, seeing this? Because for people that don't know, like, Detroit has so many ties that go back to, like, African-centered roots. And a lot of most Black traditions, richness, kind of tie back to the East Side. Is like the root and the heartbeat of where Black folks lived was the East Side, period. But African-centered stuff was, like, heavy out east. Like, so, like, the reigns of, like, first Kwanzaa celebrations and so many things like that. But from a child's perspective, what was it like to see that? And then, like, be across the street, too. That's, like, different.
Yeah, and we were, like, completely grossed in it. I think when you grow up in a community and they're offering programs and things, even if it's not something that you're interested in. If your friends are doing it, you're like, oh, okay, I'm about to go over here, So I wasn't enrolled at the sub center, but everybody knew that was just a community space to meet up. We would have, and they would do, like, cheerleading practices in there. They would have food and cookouts and all that stuff. And I think anybody who grew up as, like, a child born in the late 80s, early 90s, it was just that was something that was really kind of pushed towards us, like that was the first place that I heard about Kwanzaa, because I was kind of going there like preschool is half a day, and the other half of the day we'd be at a sub center doing little projects and activities like latchkey kind of. And so we would do Coochie Chocolate and Self-Determination. Like, I remember all those songs. We couldn't bring in outside food, so like if you didn't have no money to eat, he's like, no, we only support us. He'd be like, well, damn, no, you ain't going to Burger King, you ain't walking over there, you spending your money in the community with us. So like, yeah, it was definitely a staple in the community when I was growing up. Like, everything was kind of centered around the sub center. That's where all the sports was at and all of the community gatherings.
And for people that don't know, like I say about this footprint, so like kind of in that same neighborhood, you also have Operation Get Down. What would happen to Quaba Center? You had Alkebu-lan Village that I touched on too. So like you would see these murals, like these strong African center murals of like kings and queens. Like, you're driving down the east side. So for like outsiders, when they talk about Detroit's east side, especially like, through rap culture and possibly like, these street documentaries or something like that, you're thinking that the east side is just full of like violence, guns,
trash,
drugs, and crime. But it also, like, I definitely think, as we say, street life is a part of, I would say, American life in general, black, white, all communities. But Detroit's east side had a very distinct connection to some Afrocentric and African-centered perspectives introduced to children. And that's so unique that you were in that footprint. Which, Bria, what neighborhood were you?
So the most of my time was spent over like on Ross Moraine area, which is like kind of closer to Harper Woods area. But before then was like Gratiot and Houston Whittier, Gratiot and Connor, down the street from Osborne. But the space like where I had most community was over like in Ross Moraine. That's like where we spent the most time. Which
is also its own unique community too, as I think of things like, okay, because most people, for most people, when you ask, when they're from the east side, you like, okay, so where are you by? Because I'm a west sider. And then you learn it, and they be like, I'm by the airport. And you be like, everybody from the east side.
Yeah, we're by the airport.
But technically, it's a city airport that used to be active.
The real Detroit.
You can reference back my Anthony Adams interview where he explains how he assisted in some of the negotiations to get Southwest Airlines to place an airline contract right there at City Airport when it was more active. And it'd be like, which airport are you flying into? Right now it's more for private jets and also training if you want to learn to fly. But at one point in time, it was a very active airport.
They're actually moving Davis Aerospace on those grounds, I believe.
I think they've been doing things more over there for a while. Like they've flown planes. So this is something else that you don't know. It is a high school where students can learn to fly planes in the city of Detroit, connected to Detroit Public Schools that has existed for a long time, Davis Aerospace. So it's not like one of those programs where you need to be, some special type of kid or anything like that.
My sister graduated from there, and she's going to flight training right now. She just graduated from Western Michigan, and she's like she went through their pilot program, went into aviation in college. Western is like really one of the only colleges in Michigan that has like the biggest aviation program. But flight training is very expensive, so now she's working like trying to get her bread up. She got a couple scholarships, which still wasn't enough, so she's just trying to get her money up so she can do her flight training, because you have to have so many hours to be a pilot, but that's the only thing standing in her way.
Yeah.
That's sweet.
So I just wanted to introduce, as we put these highlights of Detroit in, because so many people sometimes not from Detroit watch this stuff. So that's one end of the east side where it's like almost like you have this airport where everybody's like, I'll stay by the airport. Hence, that's the running joke. But the other part of the east side is the few people that say, I stay by Eastland Mall. That's your community.
Yeah.
So like when we think of what that is, and I think of that cultural staple of Eastland, which to the west side, that was Northland for us. You know what I'm saying? Like a mall that, as they say, like, the classic Chris Rock joke, the mall the white people used to go to. But Eastland
Ain't never been was, the mall the white people. No.
most of my life, like going to Eastland was one of the most like culturally, it was
Watch it now.
something that like it's like this is Detroit is different because it's still such an impression on like a lot of walks of life, a lot of perspectives, a lot of like, you know, some of the best airbrush designers, some of the best like
All those cookies. Oh my God. You hit the smell when you hit the dough. Okay.
I mean, yeah, and like that's one of the few malls where like some of the boutique stores, like people would spend more money in boutique stores than like Macy's. So like it was a different type of shopping center. And then the movie theater that was in there.
Yeah.
What do you remember about Eastland as a kid?
Really, the movie theater. My dad used to take us into what was the name of it? I want to say Marshall Fields. We used to go into Marshall Fields and get like the frozen yogurt.
Oh yeah.
We used to do that like often. Target for sure. Like I still love Target now. But that's the main thing. And then like when my brother went and he got some Cartier glasses, and then like the same day, like he was walking to a corner store that we never used to go to, and he walked that one that day because he wanted to be cool in his Cartier glasses that he just got, and like somebody robbed him. So that's a memory from there. But that's the main thing, just like frozen yogurt, going up there sometimes, like going to Target, things like that.
Touched on another cultural norm that you guys may be familiar with if you study Detroit hip hop more so. Getting, as they say, getting your yay snatched or getting Cartier glasses.
Yeah. That was so dumb. Like, I don't know why he walked to that store. And, like, they had guns and everything. And they were like, hey, are them yays? He was like, nah. And he was like, yes, they are. Give them here. Like, why would you walk to the store that we never walked to?
Well, getting,
so stupid, but.
You know, I mean, no one wants to get robbed, but robbery happens. You know what I'm saying? And it's, you know, I mean, it happens. But along with that, you said you brought up a couple other things within that family structure of being there. Why do you think you're because in that option of being in a community like that, why do you think your family chose to stay in Detroit? Because so many people would want to move away from Detroit because of the label of Detroit. And obviously being in a community like that, options existed where they possibly could have picked another community. Why do you think they chose Detroit to stay?
Well, for the city, I don't know exactly. I do know that, like, majority of my family was on the west side. Like, we were the only people in our family that moved to the east side. And my dad did that once my parents got married. Well, he lived over there before. Like, when he moved out at 18. He moved to the east side because he's not from there. My mom isn't from there. My mom is west. And so he moved over there because the housing was cheaper. And so he moved our family over there. So we were literally the only people in our family over there.
Which this also brings up another thing for people watching, like the dynamics of like these two sides. And this is common in many cities, but it's just certain things that Detroit is still the same city no matter what. But there are certain nuances of things that you see on the east side more prevalent than the west side and vice versa.
Yeah.
And even the flow, like even the way that they the conversations and slang and certain things, like it's like certain things are different calls to actions and how you feel. Now we talk family and structure period as we go back around. Who in your family was the first to just come to Detroit period?
Well, I know, like, on my great-grandmother's side, my granny, her family moved up here. Her father moved up here because they were super, they, like, had a store down south. And they were from Alabama.
Where at?
In Alabama, somewhere in Alabama.
Alabama where? You don't even know.
I don't know.
Okay.
I don't know. But they had a family store down there. And my another great grandfather, like, got into it with this white guy because he was, like, super respected. They had real estate and all that stuff. And so he got into it with the white guy, ended up killing the white guy for whatever reason, and him and his wife ended up moving up here. So, like, they came up here, and then they ended up moving their kids up here, like, slowly but surely, just so that they could be safe. And so that's how they got up here. So that's what I do know.
And that's the story of even how the late, great Coleman Alexander Young made his way to Detroit just due to a incident with the Ku Klux Klan, and not just him, even Jimmy Boggs. I mean, it was just such a common story, and a lot of these migration patterns, as I brought up on this, follow the train lines. So you have, especially in the East Side, at one point in time, like you had whole pockets of communities, because that's where Black people had to live in the East Side, where it would be these people are from Alabama, these people are from Florida, these people are from Georgia, you know, and then when you look like the other train lines, these people would be from, like, you know, Chicago's full of a lot of Black folks from Arkansas, Texas, Louisiana, because of the way the train lines would go,
south, yeah.
right? And, you know, that's where, like, we always say, like, you know, our sister and cousin cities, New York has a lot of Black folks from even further, like, you know, Carolinas and, like, where the train line would go. And these patterns and these thought processes of coming and having family here and sending down for more to come up and making a flagship. And Detroit was definitely one of those places where you could make a flagship. Same thing for you, Korey. Who in your family was the first to come to the D?
So my grandparents both came with their parents, like maybe when they were children or young teenagers, and they both came for work. So like my grandfather's people, they came from Louisiana, not New Orleans. I can't remember the city. It's like Gulfport, something like that.
Shreveport?
Maybe, yeah.
So that is unique, as I say, like, because Black folks from Louisiana usually wouldn't come this far east. They usually would end up in Chicago.
And that's another thing that I was going to say too. Like, she didn't grow up around all of her family, but I like, we have a whole pocket on the east side. Like, you know, they around the corner, cousins over here, cousins over there, cousins over there. Like, we are scattered amongst that one neighborhood, and pretty much everybody branched out and moved from there, but everybody lived in that central area. So as a kid, I grew up with mostly all my cousins living walking distance, and like we was all in the hood. Yeah, we all went to the neighborhood school.
So like, one of y'all get in trouble, everybody got in trouble.
Yeah, we all got the last name. Somebody, I go somewhere and they be like, "Oh, you a Butler?" Like, "Oh, you with them people?" Like, yeah,
like, oh, you know, I can't even. It's like you walking down the street. It's like, I know you, and it'd be like, I don't know you, man. So within this, I would say, like I say, Louisiana is unique because that like puts the roots. Like, did you ever go down there to Louisiana?
We went when I was a little girl. I remember going one time, and I did not like it. It was like a lot of bugs, a lot of mud. Take me home, you know. But we was in the country. We was deep down in there. And from Florida, too. My grandmother's people are from Florida. And when we went there, it was the same way. Like, very, very country. Okay. She don't live, like, in Orlando. Look, it's another small city that I never heard of, besides knowing that that's where they were from.
Okay. So the roots of this, and did your grandparents, your family said y'all kind of made that footprint in that neighborhood. So they stayed there, like, around those same blocks. What do you think was it about that community that brought them there, which is a little, not necessarily in the heart of what we call Black Bottom, but it's like extending a little bit before, but like Black people were welcome in that community. Yeah,
and it was like an up and coming neighborhood at that time. Like, my grandparents were a middle class Black family. Both of them worked at the plant, so they had, you know, a little money at the time, a 2-income household, and they bought a house over in that area when it was like up and coming. Like, a lot of the houses that are there right now probably hadn't even been built yet, or they were built, but they weren't like
occupied.
Yeah, you know how like people come in and it looks like a wooden house or whatever, and then they like put the side in the brick fronts or whatever. Like, so the neighborhood didn't look like it looked now. Okay. And they brought that house over there. I'm not sure how much they paid for it, but it had always been like a thriving community. Like, when they came here, that's where they settled, and they all just branched out and stayed in that one neighborhood. I don't know. I can't tell you why nobody ever thought like, oh, I'm gonna go over here. On 7 Mile. They just all stayed right there.
And that's the other angle of things now, like as life has evolved, because that's kind of the footprint of where Detroit kind of starts, especially with Black folks. We think of like the Black Bottom and then further out and spinning there. Like, this community is like one of the first West Side communities more open to Black people coming, and a lot of Jewish people left. And then as time goes on, it puts black people like on 7 and 8 Mile and like different communities like Moross and Meringue. Like, you know what I'm saying? But like the richness kind of connected to that is a different flow, a different feel. It comes with different cultures. It comes with like pizza shops, penny candy shops. And the East Side had so much more of that, even more so than the West Side, of entrepreneurship all the time.
And a lot of our stuff was community based, like the fruit truck. Fresh and ripe banana here. He come out on the, and all the kids know we about to go to the fruit truck. We gonna take our little change. Come get these bananas. Here, get these grapes. These strawberries good today. And like, so that was like healthy snacks for us, you know. Or they pulled a pool up in the
swim
at the park. Yeah, and all the little dirty kids, we just all come jump in this pool. Look, because it's a driving around pool. Like, how clean could it be?
Swimmobile. But chlorine, and that was a cool thing for the city because hey, on them hot days, Swimmobile was one of the things people definitely look forward to. So now this moves more so for you guys' personal families and everything. And teacher education is where you all went. What drew you all to education? Did you all have educators in your family, or was it just one of those things where you connected there? I'm gonna start with Bria.
So my mom was a kindergarten teacher and had done that since I was born. And then in my household, like, education was just super important. Like, my dad was the type to have us sit down and watch a movie and say, I'm going to ask you questions at the end, and, like, always ask us questions.
So he was like Furious Styles from Boys in the Hood?
Yes, absolutely. He's so that. He's for real that. Like, for real. So education was just always there. And I think you can build community through education. Mm-hmm. And so that street that I talked about over on Moross and Meringue area, before then, like, we could never, like, play with the kids in our neighborhood. We didn't go to neighborhood schools. We went to schools, like, in some suburbs and like, Pontiac and St. Clair Shores and Roseville and things like that. So the first time I ever had, like, a more Detroit experience somewhat was DSA. But I think you build community through education. And so that's kind of how I ended up getting into that myself.
Cool.
And I liked school. I was weird.
Same thing, your angle. What led you into education? Did you have family in it?
I kind of just fell into it. Can I tell a story? Okay. So I was, like I said, I'm a mom. I just had my son. He was maybe like 1 year old. It's like 2006. And I was working at McDonald's. And my mother, who had normally been very hovering, knew at that time that she just kind of had to let me figure it out on my own. So I'm catching the bus back and forth to this job, and like, it's nighttime, and you know, I'm out here by myself, and I'm just like, I don't want to keep doing this. And somebody told me that they were hiring secretaries at DPS, and I'm like, well, I'll do anything. So I just go in here. I go apply for the job. They call me. They like, come take a typing test. I go to the typing test, and I'm sitting there, and she's like, all right, anybody who didn't get a 32, you can leave. And I had like a 26 or something like that. And so I just sat there. And then everybody left. She didn't embarrass me or nothing, but she just came and whispered in my ear, like, what you doing? Because I told you, because you know your score. I could see your score on the computer, like you didn't get enough. And I just started crying and was like, please, ma'am, don't send me away. Like, I need this job. I seen a lady get jacked off on the bus, and I was like, I can't do this no more. Like, this is it. I'm done. So I went there, and she was like, okay. She was like, I started crying. She was like, get yourself together, and I'll be back in a minute. And she went and got everybody set up and to do their paperwork, and she came back and she said, okay, I'm gonna give you a chance, and I'm gonna let you go ahead, and if anybody ever called me from a school saying anything bad about you, that's the last chance you'll ever get, and we're gonna terminate you on the spot. And so I started, that was in 2006, and I started as a secretary, like just bouncing around, and eventually I just found myself in a higher position. You know, I moved up as I stayed there all that time, and then by the time I got to Mumford, I was kind of like the top secretary, like, you know, super secretary. And then I transitioned into another role.
So, okay. So when you were in school, were you a person that liked school? Were you?
Absolutely, yeah. Okay. I definitely liked school. And because I went to DPS like all my life. I had never gone to a school that wasn't a DPS school. Like, I went to Flicks, I went to Joyce, I went to Grant. So like,
what's like, you went to Flicks?
I went
we
to
definitely
Flicks.
Gonna talk about that. Okay.
Well, only for a year. I went for first grade.
But let me tell people this: it is another school within DPS, foreign language,
immersion, cultural studies.
and it's specifically built on like, okay, so like you'll have a first grader choose a discipline of Japanese, and the teacher will teach Japanese almost like half the day, and the rest will be English and everything culturally, or Swahili, or Spanish or something. Like Flicks is like such a gem that a lot of those students from Flicks that learn Chinese just naturally were getting opportunities. I want to say like, what was that, like 10 years ago, when they were looking to connect and just opportunity, but it's immersion is for real. So like, you find out about some of these gems within Detroit public school system that just always existed. So it's unique that you went to Flicks. What led for your parents to send you there?
My dad had heard about it. So, funny story, my biological father and my mother broke up when I was little, and then he got with another woman. So I have a stepsister. We're like 2 months apart, but we sisters, because we've grown up. They were together when we were like 2. So we've always done everything together because we're the exact same age. Like we took our senior pictures together. But my dad heard about the school. He was going to, him and his wife was going to send my stepsister there, and he's like, I want Korey to go too. And so my mom was like, fine. So I lived on the east side, but
and you were going to,
they would drive us.
Flicks
Yeah,
is, like,
it used
right next
to be
to Renaissance. Like
now it is, but it used
okay.
to be on the north end. It used to be over.
Oh,
I was a little kid, but it was like off 75 Holbrook somewhere, and it's like around this area, kind of not far from here. At Hutchinson. You know where that used to be at? It was right over there somewhere.
Okay. So we're giving a lot of gems on DPS right now, and then also I have to definitely stop you with the McDonald's as a former fast food employee of, let's say, I did Pizza Hut, I did Burger King, I did Taco Bell, I did the round robin of them, and working fast food. It's like I always tell people, like, when people say I never do this, I'll never do that. It's interesting to say the least, but some of the coolest experiences and most memorable stories also because I was like a certain age. What McDonald's did you work at?
So I started when I was in high school. I worked on Gratiot and French Road, which is still open, and then I circled back after I had that baby and I needed a job, and I was working on 7 Mile and Woodward. And that church had just started, and it's still not done. But they had bought that land and started to build that church. It had been a Coney Island and an Asian corned beef, and it had so many lives.
That's an immense.
Yeah, for sure.
That's an undertaking of a McDonald's because that community that she speaks of, 7 and Woodward, she's speaking about the church that and they're still working on it. And as far as I'm concerned,
got security
let
over
them
there
do.
In that car, it's just a security car, just like
hey,
it's been like my son is 17. He was 1.
Hey, as far as I'm concerned, let them do that because it's we got a half-built jail across the street from the NFL stadium, and ain't nobody talking about that. So let the black man do what they do too.
Okay.
But
it take you 20 years.
Yeah, it take them 30, 40, 50. We had a train station in the middle of the city that ain't nobody even raised sanctions on, and actually he sold it. The city helped him sell it. Let me get on my soapbox. Let the black man do what he do. Black city, more power. But I'm gonna say that neighborhood is one of the most unique neighborhoods because 7 and Woodward, like you have basically Sherwood Forest over here, right?
Yeah,
Highland Park is like right here,
right there,
and you have what they call like Little Rock because it's. So, like, people may be familiar more so with Dearborn's culture of the Arab community that exists, and that's Arab people with more money. Arab people with a little bit less money,
they live
right around that 7 Mile and Woodward area, and then it's an African community over there too. Like that neighborhood, almost from like 7 and Woodward, and if you keep going down 7 Mile to like John R, because it shift and turn like into a whole nother hood on the other side of John R. But and then the state fair is over there. It's a unique neighborhood. Also, the biggest bus station in and around the city is like, a block and a half away too of like the state fair bus station. What was it like at that McDonald's? I assume you probably saw all type of people at that McDonald's.
Oh yeah, it was banging. And then we would have like, back at the time, it was the Eastside Cheddar Boys, Big Herc and all of them. So you would have like the Detroit celebrities come through the drive-through. He'd pay for all the cars behind them or little stupid stuff like that. Throw us money, think it's funny. Like, it was fun. It definitely wasn't fun sometimes. But, you know, you get those experiences and you're just like...
And that's really what this show is more so about. And we're going to get into you guys' show. But it's like, it highlights the nuances of Detroit culture because I'm just such a fan of that. And through people telling their stories of it. So when you talk about the Cheddar Boys, shout out Tough Tone. We went to, well... I didn't even finish Northwestern, but he attended high school while I was in high school. But shout out Tone, you know what I'm saying? Cool dude. But like Eastside Cheddar Boys, definitely like a staple of a time. Like I graduated 2001, so like if you graduated 2001, 2, 3, Eastside Cheddar Boys was kind of like the street music
Brian Icewood
of that era of what Detroit was, but. Even more so, like, no offense to Blade, and we love Blade, but Blade and them, it was different. Like, West Siders, we know Oak Park ties, you know what I'm saying? Whereas, like, the Eastside Cheddar Boys were, like, those dudes, as we talk about the new differences between, like, East Siders and West Siders, like, it's like, no, they were, like...
And they were still in the hood every day. You could catch them. Like, they be at JB's on Warren and Connor. You could catch them going to get fresh for the weekend. They was out there.
Yes. This was, like I say, that they would, you know what I'm saying?
It was not an occurrence to see them on a regular day. It's just in the hood.
Yes. Like, I mean, even right now, one of my favorite street rappers died, like Peasy from D, and like everything his mom does too. Like, it's just a different flow, and it ain't no shade to the other rappers from here because like right now street rap is booming. Babyface Ray, everything Cash Doll is doing, everything. I mean, I want to say 42 Doug. Like street rap is almost like at the Paul Sada. Like street rap from Detroit may be the leading arc of underground street rap in the world. You know what I'm saying? So, but when we think about who these guys look to, like Sada and all those guys, they looked up to Tone, Eastside Cheddar Boys. Vezo's still in the mix with it, Vezzy. Like these guys like set that tone, and so much of that was even Eastside culture. You know what I'm saying? So it's unique that you say like that 7 Mile Woodward McDonald's would have that, but also because like Palmer Park was right there, the LGBTQ community is like in that mix too. Like that, if I had to pick an intersection of if a person told me anything on earth would happen, that's one of those few intersections. Like if a person told me the president of the United States came there, I'd be like, okay, I could see that being a 7 Woodward. And then if a person told me it was a person having a fist fight with a raccoon, I'd be like, yeah, that possibly can happen out there too. And then if a person told me, hey man, it was like 95 senior citizen women walking down the streets for protesting for rights for green energy, I'm like, yeah, that can happen at 7 and like basically it's one of the few places of like if you really want to soak up Detroit culture, I'd say that's an intersection that you can get it from.
For sure.
Even more so than like the downtown intersection, like, you know, because people think the spirit of Detroit, because that's just, I don't know.
It's not our downtown. Like, it's not, downtown is not old school Detroit. Like, you know, it's nice. I like going downtown. Like, it's a vibe down there. It's an energy downtown. When you get down there, you're like, oh, you know, you're downtown. But, like, it's not. And maybe Detroit downtown was never popping when I was a little kid, you know, so it's not the downtown. I remember, like, we was going downtown and going shopping. We were going downtown.
For the parade?
Yeah.
Fireworks?
The school center building, you got to go down there and get your transcript. One time we thought we wanted to move out of town and then came right back. Like, so downtown was, like, business, shopping. It wasn't like... It wasn't like a city center like it is now. Like, you remember going to Belle Isle and stuff, but even back then, it was no Riverwalk or... You just got that little park right there where the little fountain is, but like there was nothing. All of that stuff was different. Which
brings me to another gem that kind of connects both these, in one of the places that, you know, I've worked with and all of that stuff. Chandler Park. What do you guys think as Eastsiders? And that's one of those gems like kind of between both those neighborhoods. You know what I'm saying? What do you all think of Chandler Park? What do you all remember about Chandler Park? Being kids there, like hearing definitely, you know, what are those stories that come to mind from Chandler Park?
Honestly, I grew up on the east side, but I didn't have a lot of.
Her daddy wasn't letting her get nowhere close to
Yeah,
Chandler
I had
Park.
a lot of.
Okay.
I grew up in a super strict household, so it was a
Okay.
lot of rules. So I grew up super sheltered. So it's like I don't have a lot of. That's why people always say like, "Okay, you from the east side? Where are you from?" Because they never believe me, and I'm like, I'm really. And when I tell them, oh, Gratiot and Conner, Gratiot and Houston Whittier, all this, and they're like, oh, okay, you are from the east side, but it's like I don't have those east side stories. Like I just don't have that. I got some of that later, but. I didn't
You
have
never
that,
went to
so-
the Indigo Ballroom.
I don't
Never
even know
went
what
to
that
party
is.
at CJ's.
Not me.
So,
I was
Chandler
Chandler Park.
Park, okay. Yeah. I mean, it wasn't always like raunchy. I learned how to swim at Chandler. I
That's
remember
good you did.
family reunions way back in the day before it got rowdy. But Chandler Park is right outside the projects. So, if you're looking for a good old East Side time, you about to roll up to Chandler Park. And back in the day, any warm day, semi-warm day like today, Chandler would have been slapping. All the guys coming out with their cars. They got their motorcycle bikes. You got some people over here that might have some kids, but they drinking, they smoking, they having a good time. Somebody done put a grill out. And you just go post up just like the Belle Isle Strip.
I think, yeah, and that's the unique thing. And like the water park is, I work with the water park and what they've done. And actually, it's a skateboard park right now in Chandler Park and everything. And they've done more with the golf. Like they've added more. And it's still family, but I still think it has the essence of what happens on the east side, like where it still feels Detroit culture.
Absolutely.
The same way that Rouge Park for the west side was. Because right now, especially with Belle Isle being a state park, it just doesn't feel the same.
No.
And it doesn't feel as welcome. So it's so cool to see some of the things about Chandler Park as it connects. But yeah, definitely, like the later on at night, it would be a strip. And for people that know the strip, it's like the strip probably in your town, like where guys would, have a new car and want to play some sounds, maybe have something to drink outside, with their girlfriend. Like it was that feel because it still is a car city. And at one point in time, Chandler Park was that. Rouge Park was that. Belle Isle at times would be that. It would
Rouge
be
Park is
different with
still
Belle Isle.
that. I just moved to that area, and I just be riding past like, it's Wednesday. What y'all doing?
It's Wednesday.
Yeah. If it's a vibe, they pulling up. The park just be full of people, and it's just like that old school vibe. They be having the drinks out. The kids over at the park. Somebody got a cooler with popsicles, and they just chilling.
And that's to me like part of the essence too. And some of these parks are like, I think it's even a different feel, though. It's the West Side's version to me of Chandler Park. It, like, with Rouge, it's the people playing chess. It's the, D-Town Farms isn't far from there. So it's the urban gardening. You have the Buffalo Soldiers with the horses.
Yes, I've seen them.
Yes, I go up and just feed horses sometimes. Like, I was driving down Joy Road, like, are those horses over there? And I just go sometimes. It's just a lot of fun. And it's really peaceful.
Whereas Chandler... So, like, I think it's like Rouge will have a mix of families and more seniors, whereas Chandler Park is almost like the opposite. It's families and just young people go there sometimes, like teenagers, kids from just around the neighborhood.
It's the projects. Okay.
I want to go
It's
swimming.
right outside the project. So everybody got a cousin, a grandma, an auntie, a family member, somebody who live in the projects.
Mm-hmm.
We all about to pull up at auntie house, see who over there, see what she got in her refrigerator. Then we about to go hit the park. That was just the move on the weekend. That's what everybody was doing. That's what I think was bringing people to the park because you with your people, and then it's like, oh, okay, that's where all the people at. Let's go over here.
And it's unique you mentioned the projects there because that's the other thing. So we think of, and things have changed now with the way Section 8 moves and projects and just the way the government has shifted how that goes. But a lot of the projects of Detroit definitely more lent itself to the east side. So we think of first the Sojourner Truth Homes, the Brewsters, even the Freedoms, which were even though kind of in that footprint of what's labeled Midtown now, still on the east side of it. But like I say, most black folks were in that footprint of what was east of Woodward. So for people that don't know, the east side is basically anything east of Woodward Avenue is considered the east side of Detroit. And you can look at Detroit to me as like a tree. And you got a branch of, the main branch is Woodward, right down the middle. And then you got a branch of Gratiot. and then you got a branch of Grand River. So basically, to me, like if you ever wanted to create mass transit in the city of Detroit, you would go those 3 veins and probably like every other 4 miles or something. So like 8 Mile, and I don't know what 4 miles in is from there, but and then they go across, and then they go across, and then it just goes further out. And all 3 of those streets also run deep into the suburbs, like Pontiac. You'll cross Grand River
you all the way to like 38, 40 miles, something like that.
I know. It's like you'll be in Mount Clemens for real. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
You know, so
way past there.
So, and I'm getting into all my Detroit is different bag. Let's get more into the Spirit Says bag. Y'all podcast. What brought you guys friendship together? I know where you all met, but what like picked up the vibe where it's like, I like your feel. Let's talk. And then how did that transition to let's have a show?
Well, it's something like like I said, I grew up in the city. I grew up on the east side, but a lot of my experience wasn't east side experience, wasn't like typical Detroit experience. And so a lot of times, like when I walk into different spaces, people assume that I'm one way. And then once they get to know me, they're like, oh, okay. And they open up, or they still kind of like, I don't know. And so when I met her, when I got to Mumford, I would get that vibe from some people. Some people were like super open and nice and everything, but some people were just like, I don't know, you know? And so with her, she was always the same. Like she was always really nice, always very welcoming. I would ask questions, and she would just always be super helpful. And it was just always really genuine.
Look at this young teacher. Let me help you out, girl.
Yeah, like she was just always that person.
These kids is crazy. And it's like, let me tell you something. Hey, come here, Andre.
So it's like she was always super genuine, and I just pay attention. Like I just paid attention to people's energy and how I feel. And so it was always like that. So then we just end up talking and just becoming friends just naturally.
It was, so we didn't work together at first. We both worked in the building, but we worked separate. You know, we didn't have a reason to collaborate.
There were 2 different Mumfords in Mumford.
Right.
Yeah.
So she worked at one school, she worked at the academy, I worked at the high school. So we knew each other, and I was like, oh, hey, Miss Bria, you look cute today, or whatever. But we weren't really friends. And then when they merged it into one school, we became... like now our jobs are like this. We work right closely with each other, so it gave us the opportunity to kind of get to know each other more. And I was like, oh well, damn, you really dope. You know, like I just thought she was just a little young girl bopping around. You know, I didn't know, because also she was like the youngest person on our staff. Like at the time, you know, we working in a high school. She like 23, 24, and so I was, you know, 31, 32, whatever. But she's so young and then so mature. She give off such like a grown up vibe, and the kids really take to her. They really want to hear what she got to say because she's young, but she's also in a subordinate position. So she was kind of like the ear to the streets. Like she know the kids, she know what's going on. They feel comfortable telling her stuff that they might not tell somebody else. So once we got to work together more and know each other, it was like we would just have these conversations that bring about so much change. Like, you know, I would be talking to her. She would be telling me something that she's experiencing, and I would just kind of be talking her through it. And then I would be like, well, damn, I was experiencing that same thing. Or she just brought a revelation to the front of my mind that I had not. It was in there somewhere, but like I didn't have a chance to exercise it until we talked. And so then it was just like, damn, we started hanging out more because, of course, it's like unlocking a different part of yourself, and you want to explore that more. And so the more we talk, I'm like, wait, let me cut my phone on because we just need to record this. We had dinner just on a random night. And I'm like, let's just record our conversation because it always, and I wanted to hear it back for myself because we just always end up so far away from where we began. And it'll be like both of us like, dang, we just walk away from the conversation so different, and it's nothing that we planned to do. Right. We just sat down to kick the shit, and then we end up crying or whatever, and then, you know, some big revelation. So that's where the Spirit Says came from, because it was such a God thing. Like, we had been in each other's face all this time, but never had the chance to connect until it was the right time. And then when we connect, we never expect to have a podcast or talk about anything or get anywhere. But, like, my life has grown so much from being her friend and, like, experiencing her. And I feel like somebody else needs to experience us because we got something valuable to give to other people, especially working with kids and like seeing life transformation. And when them kids go, when they graduate and they leave, you might not see them no more. You don't know what happens. But like when they're the 4 years when they in that school, a lot of their life revolves around that school, and you get like, you know, they go through things and they come and they share things with you, and like it was just,
You go through it with them.
yeah, it was just a real transformative experience. Like I didn't know it at the time, but I look back and I'm like, damn, I learned so much in those years just about myself. And it was like I had just become single. It was like everything just happened at the same time. So I don't know. I just felt like, you know, what she's done for me, what I've done for her, we could do for other people.
That's deep. So this podcast, and you all have done an iteration of it, but now I'm glad and welcome you with open arms to Detroit is Different. I can see the connection. Definitely adding 2 cents of the flow together too. What type of topics will be explored, Bria? What will I get when I listen, when I tune in? What's gonna be the focus?
I feel like more than anything, the focus is your own intuition. So when we were having conversations, it would, like, I tell people all the time, like, I have friends, but I also have people that I feel like are my counsel. So, like, that's my inner circle. Those are the people that I'll talk to about any and everything, that see me, that see, you know, that see my spirit, that recognize my spirit because it also resonates within them and it's a reflection of them. But I talk to them because they don't tell me what to do. They don't say, oh, you shouldn't do this or you should do this. They really just point me back to myself. So that's what we're really going to be doing, is pointing people back to themselves, because the answer is already within you. Whatever it is, your purpose, your gift, your light, whatever it is already within. So really our conversations are going to be very vulnerable, very transparent, very genuine, fun, funny, all those things. But it's just going to help people look within themselves. And that's really the goal of it all. Spirit Says is really about paying attention, having a moment to be still. And it doesn't mean just like literally just sitting still, but just sitting within yourself and recognizing what your spirit is saying, where you're being guided to. You know, what brought me to Mumford was really spirit. Like, I was going to start a self-love girls group because I felt like the person that, you know, the girls see within me that they want to talk to and tell me about their lives and tell me everything. You know, I felt like I could have benefited from having someone like me in my life when I was younger. So I didn't have a job at the time, ended up going up to Mumford. Well, I went up to my old high school. I went to DSA to start a self-love girls group. The principal, they had a new principal at the time. She wasn't getting back to me. And I'm like, I feel like my spirit is leading me to do this. I ended up going up to Renaissance. So I'm like, I'm going to go to schools that are nicer schools and everything. Renaissance had a program like that, Pretty Brown Girl. So I'm like, okay, I look up the DPS schools. The first one closest to Renaissance was Mumford. I had a roommate in college. She went to Mumford. She told me about the things that were happening at Mumford, and I'm like, I don't know, but this is what my spirit is leading me to do, so I'm going to do that. And then, bam, like she said, we had been in each other's, in the vicinity of one another for quite some time, but like after 2 years, then we started to, you know, build a relationship and talk and things like that. So it's like, just like how spirit led me there, you know, things changed at Mumford, the two schools merged, and then we end up having conversations, and now we're here, and we're going to give that to other people. It's just really just pointing people back to themselves.
And let me say this too, because as they say, like, you know, bad news travels fast, and it does, because I think it's, you know, it's more shocking. But even the way that we follow media itself, I mean, people are watching 50 Cent's Power series, and you know, even the new Batman, and like, because you know what I'm saying, it's gonna be violence and action and shouting, and you know what I'm saying? Sometimes, but within it, being a Northwestern guy, and Lord knows that's definitely a neighborhood school, if it ever was a neighborhood school. And it definitely was like even my neighborhood, like right now, I'm on Clements, you know, right off Rosa Parks. Like, if you want to get into some street life, it's many doors to open, you know. But even within the ethics of the street life, it's still some character, it's some morality. I think it's a level of sincerity that exists in our community, of what America may label as less, that is so much more and so much rich. Some of the experiences, as we know, the traumas that some of the students go through, but just families of black people go through, it's real and it's experiential. But in that same spectrum of the trauma, as I feel like, you know, like black trauma can be interfaced and used as like a call to action and almost marketed to people, it's a lot of black triumph too. It's a lot of joys in what may even be labeled as poverty. You know what I'm saying? It's a lot of
good
like,
recipes.
That kid that made, you know, that kid know that they fell in every day, but they show up one day to, you know what I'm saying, buy lunch for the next kid or something. You know what I'm saying? Like, that stuff happens. So, like, what one may notice as like a empty gesture is like something real. You know what I'm saying? Like, I ain't gonna be here. I ain't gonna use my laptop, man. Here you go. You can take it because I'm doing this or focus there. Like, it's a lot of acts of love. It's a lot of sincerity. It's a lot of true character that can come and rise above the vestiges of like the pictures that we be painted in. So like when people ask definitely a story like what's happening at a Northwestern or Mumford or most neighborhood schools. But I go as far as even saying the quote unquote good schools. Like, you know, people go through stuff. I mean, students are people and people go through stuff. It's just that when they're younger, we look at it through a lens of like, oh, if you 12, you're not supposed to. And it's like, nah, man. In reality, you know, I mean, you know, somebody gonna sneak a knife in school at 12. You know what I'm saying? And it presents a moment depending upon the teachers, the administrators, the parents, and even the other students to like really unpack that, or, you know what I'm saying, try to sweep it under the rug. And it all depends on from what angle, because knives are in America, or knives are in society. They exist. Violence exists. Guns exist. Like, how do we address what this is? So, like, yeah, definitely in a one-off, if somebody tells you about a school, it'd be like, yeah, it can sound scary. But that also sometimes because so many people are afraid to touch and connect with some of those students and some of those resources, they'll be the most receptive. And you even learn yourself, you know. And the toughest thing about, as I think about it with most of my work when I've worked with students, I think it just takes a level of patience that right now I don't have as much of that in my world of business. But if you're willing to be patient, you're going to get glimpses of creativity and brilliance. And a lot of the silliness and a lot of the dismissive nature and all of that stuff is more all of those stacked up insecurities of for so long feeling as though these people that are interacting with me really don't care. So let me be proactive, almost like in an offensive nature, and give you a reason not to care about me. And now I'm going to justify whatever this behavior is. But if you're willing to be patient and cut through that, in your own style, and everybody got their own style. So like, you know, Morgan Freeman was Joe Clark, or Joe Clark's style was Joe Clark's style. You can't be Korey and be Joe Clark. And you can't be Bria and Joe Clark. You can't be Korey and Joe Clark. You got to have your own style, because that's the other thing about younger people. Like it's like they can read through the reel so much faster. Now they're still developing who they really are. But as far as you, they definitely can be like, oh man, you ain't really Joe Clark. But if you are, yeah, you could probably be like, you smoke crack, don't you? And it's like, man,
but you know, you gotta have a relationship with your kids, because you know, I'm not gonna walk up to a kid that I ain't never encountered before and just start getting on their face. However, and it's a disclaimer, I ain't trying to lose my job, but you know, you got that kid you got a relationship with, and you could see them in the lunchroom and be like, hey, look, you know you ain't supposed to be doing that. You better stop. You know, like, so it's all about how you approach it. Like, some of these kids, they get up and press themselves to the school just because that's the only love they get all day.
And that's really at the root of a lot of this. You know, my homeboy pointed out something like a school in Baltimore won some award where they're on TV, and like some of the kids were kind of acting silly, and then the principal was like, you know what I'm saying? But did it so fast that like you almost just have to know.
But it takes a certain rapport. You know what I'm saying? Like, I feel like sometimes, I mean, it is a place and a time for everything.
But it's still like, I think when you have the relationship and rapport, you can do this. And they get it. And it's like, and you're right.
But kids don't even expect you to be. Because like, I remember one time I was in the lunchroom just walking through ninth grade lunch, and they was in a cipher. And I'm talking about they was hard in that thing. Like, they was doing a beat. Boy was going. He was flowing. I just so happened to be walking past. And I'm like, okay. And then he said something like chopsticks, and everybody like, oh, they all went crazy. I'm like, oh, this shit, that was sweet. And they like, what you doing? Why y'all stop rapping? Keep going. I was in the flow. What we doing? Like, no, y'all can do that. And like, people don't see that. They don't see all the good things. They see the fights. They see the guns. They see the bad grades or the failing test scores. But like, it's so many triumphs. Like, I know a kid right now who did not graduate from high school, but we loved this kid down to the bone. And we was doing everything that we could to try to get him out of school because he just was so sweet. And he was getting up and coming every single day. He ain't had nobody at home waking him up in the morning, making him come to school. Mm-hmm. We ain't seen him for a couple days. We'd be like, where you was at? What you was doing? Oh, my hot water heater went out. I was on YouTube trying to figure out how to get it to work so we could have some hot water at the crib. You know, like little stuff like that. And it's like, you don't throw him away just because he ain't finished the mission. What's next? How can I help you? How can I support?
And then it's those entry points. You know what I'm saying? So sometimes it definitely is that, I mean, I guess it's the old adage, it takes a village, but more so than even the village, just the right perspective. And then just different angles and perspectives. Like, you know, what Tupac said, like, I may not be the mind that changes the world, but I can inspire the mind that does. Yes, and I would say that, like, I would expand that to say, we all change the world, right? But it takes certain levels of consciousness for different people to catch at certain levels, you know? So one of the last discussions I had where I was debating with somebody about, like, this is so bad because Snoop, he a gang member and he's so misogynistic and he so this and he so that. Why is we cheering him on for the Super Bowl? Which in reality, I'm a person, because my mind is so open in this media. Like, I think everything needs to be observed from all angles. But like what I had to tell my friend was like, okay, to you, Snoop is that, and he deserves to be critiqued like that. But to like a whole lot of kids, and especially like my nephew is in Inglewood right now, like around the corner, like right in the heart of like where Crenshaw would be, like, to kids, and he's heading to middle school. That's like when kids really be, you know what I'm saying, that whole where you from is AKA if you don't know and like you more square. That's basically a calling of what gang are you in? Where do you associate? You know what I'm saying? Hence, where your mama and them from? You know what I'm saying? That's question 2 in LA. But for a lot of people, what Snoop represents just in agency and embodiment is like somebody that came through Crippin' and made something of himself in the eyes of so many. Now, whether you see him as a success or whether you don't, it's so many young homies, you know, that see him as a success and have more to aspire to, because as he unlocks and does things that are outside of the scope of what people think a Crip would do, it opens them up to not just define themselves in this box of what they think Crippin' is. Nipsey Hussle the same way. So it's like, it depends on, like, and you know, you may move past looking to Snoop and then you learn from, I don't know, Cornel West, and then you learn from yourself. I you know what I'm saying? It goes, but it still takes one point. It takes somebody at the level where you at to connect with you first. Right. And then from there it can grow. Because it's going, you know what I'm saying? You're not going, if you Crippin', you not hearing probably the higher consciousness that this other people have. So just him being at the Super Bowl stage, and my own feelings about the NFL, my own feelings about the platform, like, it's a lot of stuff. But it's like, I also am smart enough to recognize what that means to so many, and even his joy for doing that, and just exposing what his joy was and connecting to that means a lot. It's the same way with a lot of these students. Like, to know that, like, you know, Miss Korey is in the office, and like, you know what I mean? I'm here and I'm out. And then you still gonna be fair. It's like, yo, if you supposed to get suspended, you're gonna get suspended, but I'm not doing it it's not malicious. You know what's fair? It's a way to hold someone accountable. Where they take, I guess, I don't want to say, where they face the consequence of their action, but you give it to them with love, and even in giving them the consequences in love.
When you take on a role in a public school, your main goal is social working. That's what you do. You're a psychologist, a social worker. You provide for their social emotional needs more so than you do educating, because like, that's not something that's taught, but that's something that I'm gonna teach. Needed. That is like a lot of kids I encounter them. They just walk up. Can I get a pass? Good morning. How you doing? Right. I'm good. Thank you for asking. Because I'm gonna teach you. You're gonna have respect. Yep. This is how you approach people. I'm gonna hold you accountable. Yes, you players fuck up. Okay, you're gonna get suspended, but how can we change this going forward? Like, so we gonna make your next move your best move. How we gonna make sure we don't do this in the future? Because that's what they need to learn. Like, I teach my son that all the time, and he be like, well, why you ain't saying nothing to them? I'm saying something to you because you're the only person that you can control. And when you get out in the world, you can't say why you saying nothing to them. I'm not going with you, so I'm not gonna be there to fight all of your battles. You have to be accountable for your actions. And knowing that you're going to be accountable for them actions will keep you from doing a lot of things that you probably shouldn't do.
That's deep.
But you know what? Earlier you said you have to have a lot of patience, and when you have that patience, you learn. And I want to challenge that a little bit because there's times I do not have patience at all. I am very patient, but I told you I grew up very strict. My dad said, he didn't say, he wasn't a saying a 2 and 3 times type of parent. I said it one time, you heard what I said, you understood what I said. So if you do what you want to do, there's consequences to doing what you want to do. And so with them, sometimes, like, I'm the kind of person, I grew up in a house, okay, you push the chair in when you get up. That's just what I know. You take your shoes off when you come in the house. There was a lot of rules. And so with these kids, sometimes I expect them to do the same thing. It's like, no, but just like you said, you're not just about to come up and ask me for something. Hello, good morning, please and thank you. And so a lot of times with these kids, you mentioned Snoop Dogg, how it's like, okay, he's a Crip, and some people don't expect him to achieve whatever else or are so in awe because he achieved this and that. But the thing is, a lot of these kids, they don't see the light within themselves. They don't see the purpose or the value within themselves because of their experience. And so when you walk up to them, it's like, it's that thing, it's that intuitive, like, I see you. You know what I'm saying? And so sometimes when you see a kid, even if you don't have the patience, sometimes it's not always just about the patience, because sometimes I don't have patience. And they teach me a lot of times more than I'm showing or teaching them, because they teach me how to have more patience. They teach me, I didn't grow up in a, oh, give me a hug type of household. Maybe when I was younger, but once I got up, not for real. So I was the kind of person, before I started working there, I've worked in daycares and just with all age groups of kids. I wasn't a big hugger. I was that person that's like, all right, like, tap, tap, like, let's wrap this up here. What are we doing? But they've made me more of that person. If you allow it, and sometimes when you don't allow it, they will expand you. But I feel like having people within schools and having that, like I said, that's how you build community. And that's not just how you build community, but that's a great opportunity to build community of working in schools, because you build community within yourself. You learn how to take care of people. You learn how to be more nurturing. You learn how to be that person that's that social worker. That's, I was in Mumford where the kids knew they can come in my room. I had apples and oranges in there. So if you're hungry, I don't want to just give you, I was like getting Pop-Tarts before, but I don't want you filling your stomach up with trash, because most of them are eating hot Cheetos and all that kind of stuff in the morning. So they can come, they know if they come to my room, it's going to smell good. You also, if you mess up, they were on each other. Like, we're going to clean up this room because I'm not cleaning up your mess. You can come in there if you're hungry. If girls, if they're on their cycle, they can come in there. If you have a bruise, you can come in there. If you're not feeling good, I can give you something and doctor you up. But I feel like you learn those things regardless if you're patient or not, because you're in that position. And so there's a lot of times in schools, there's people with degrees and certifications. That's all great. But I feel like more than anything, you have to have the spirit for it and the anointing to be able to do it. And so Spirit says, I don't want to just be throwing out words like anointing and God and things like that and make people feel like it's a religious podcast, because it's not. But it's that intuitive thing that even animals have. Like, okay, there's something about your spirit. There's something about when you come around, there's a kindred spirit. There's a like mind. There's a certain energy. When I leave this room, I feel better than when I came in. So long story long and tangent.
Right.
There's 2 or 3
whatever
tangents away.
spirit is for you.
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly.
Well, that's cool. I look forward to it. Thank you both for coming on Detroit is Different. I look forward to this thing lifting off the ground and being a part of the network. We're going to get this thing going, and you all just were introduced in the Detroit is Different style to what's going to be offered from Korey and Bria. Thank you both.
Thank you.
Detroit is Different is where you get information, artistry, history, music, and even comedy. Detroit is Different, a home for the culture of Detroit. Visit online at DetroitisDifferent.com today.
When you take on a role in a public school, your main goal is social working. That's what you do. You're a psychologist, a social worker. You provide for their social emotional needs more so than you do educating, because like that's not something that's taught, but that's something that I'm gonna teach.
Needed. That is
like a lot of kids I encounter them. They just walk up. Can I get a pass? Good morning. How you doing?
Right.
I'm good. Thank you for asking. Because I'm gonna teach you. You're gonna have respect.
Yep.
This is how you approach people. I'm gonna hold you accountable. Yes, you. Players fuck up, okay, you're going to get suspended, but how can we change this going forward? Like, so we going to make your next move your best move. How are we going to make sure we don't do this in the future? Because that's what they need to learn. Like, I teach my son that all the time, and he be like, well, why you ain't saying nothing to them? I'm saying something to you because you're the only person that you can control. And when you get out in the world, you can't say why you saying nothing to them. I'm not going with you, so I'm not going to be there to fight all of your battles. You have to be accountable for your actions. And knowing that you're going to be accountable for them actions will keep you from doing a lot of things that you probably shouldn't do.
That's deep.
That was me. But you know what? Earlier you said you have to have a lot of patience. And when you have that patience, you learn. And I want to challenge that a little bit because there's times I do not have patience at all. I am very patient, but I told you I grew up very strict. My dad said, he wasn't a saying a 2 and 3 times type of parent. I said it one time, you heard what I said, you understood what I said. So if you do what you want to do, there's consequences to doing what you want to do. And so with them, sometimes, like, I'm the kind of person, I grew up in a house, okay, you push the chair in when you get up. That's just what I know. You take your shoes off when you come in the house. There was a lot of rules. And so with these kids, sometimes I expect them to do the same thing. It's like, no, but just like you said, you're not just about to come up and ask me for something. Hello, good morning, please and thank you. And so a lot of times with these kids, you mentioned Snoop Dogg, how it's like, okay, he's a Crip, and some people don't expect him to achieve whatever else or are so in awe because he achieved this and that. But the thing is, a lot of these kids, they don't see the light within themselves. They don't see the purpose or the value within themselves because of their experience. And so when you walk up to them, it's like, it's that thing, it's that intuitive, like, I see you. You know what I'm saying? And so sometimes when you see a kid, even if you don't have the patience, sometimes it's not always just about the patience, because sometimes I don't have patience. And they teach me a lot of times more than I'm showing or teaching them, because they teach me how to have more patience. They teach me, I didn't grow up in a, oh, give me a hug type of household. Maybe when I was younger, but once I got up, not for real. So I was the kind of person, before I started working there, I worked in daycares and just with all age groups of kids. I wasn't a big hugger. I was that person that's like, all right, like, tap, tap, like, let's wrap this up here. What are we doing? But they've made me more of that person. If you allow it, and sometimes when you don't allow it, they will expand you. But I feel like having people within schools and having that, like I said, that's how you build community. And that's not just how you build community, but that's a great opportunity to build community of working in schools, because you build community within yourself. You learn how to take care of people. You learn how to be more nurturing. You learn how to be that person that's that social worker. That's, I was in Mumford where the kids knew they can come in my room. I had apples and oranges in there. So if you're hungry, I don't want to just give you, I was like getting Pop-Tarts before, but I don't want you filling your stomach up with trash, because most of them are eating hot Cheetos and all that kind of stuff in the morning. So they can come, they know if they come to my room, it's going to smell good. You also, if you mess up, they were on each other. Like, we're going to clean up this room because I'm not cleaning up your mess. You can come in there if you're hungry. If girls, if they're on their cycle, they can come in there. If you have a bruise, you can come in there. If you're not feeling good, I can give you something and doctor you up. But I feel like you learn those things regardless if you're patient or not, because you're in that position. And so there's a lot of times in schools, there's people with degrees and certifications. That's all great. But I feel like more than anything, you have to have the spirit for it and the anointing to be able to do it. And so Spirit says, I don't want to just be throwing out words like anointing and God and things like that and make people feel like it's a religious podcast, because it's not. But it's that intuitive thing that even animals have. Like, okay, there's something about your spirit. There's something about when you come around, there's a kindred spirit. There's a like mind. There's a certain energy. When I leave this room, I feel better than when I came in. So long story long and tangent.
Right.
There's 2 or 3
whatever
tangents away.
Spirit is for you.
Exactly.
Okay.